Okay, so today I want to talk about El Shaddai and the interpretation of that, specifically um, highlighting Margaret Barker's interpretation from her book, The Mother of the Lord, Lady in the Temple. Everyone should read this book. um, so, in the scriptures, in the Bible, whenever you read the word Almighty God, that is the translation of El Shaddai. Um, Her interpretation of what El Shaddai means leaves room for a feminine translation or interpretation. Um, to me, just like Elohim is plural, and it seems like Elohim would be the title for our heavenly parents. Um, El Shaddai also seems to have this masculine and feminine um, plurality, I guess, where you have El is generally translated as God, and El is a male deity um, that was used in the ancient Levant, or was worshipped in the ancient Levant, not just by the Israelites, um, but also generally had consorts, as scholars call it. Um, and Shaddai, on the other hand, has the seemingly ancient feminine ending, I, as in Sarai. And Margaret Barker points out that it looks suspiciously like Shaddai is in Shad, the root meaning breast, a woman's breast, and Shaddai would be a duality of that. Most scholars translate Shaddai from the root Shaddad, meaning almighty and destroyer. I think she accepts that interpretation, but adds to it and looks at the sort of, sorry, I'm distracted by my neighbors. I don't know if you can hear any of that or if you just hear my microphone. um, but she adds to it, suggesting other meanings for Shaddai. Um, Something else is that the letter Sheen at the beginning could easily also be the letter Seen, which anciently would not have been written with an indicator of which letter it actually was. They're the same writing, they just have a dot in a different spot. In which case, um, it could be Sadai, also meaning fields. Um, so she's a lady of the field, um, of succoring, of nurturing, of providing. There's a lot of um, motifs in the Bible and in the other scriptures of God providing for us, succoring us. I think of the manna in the desert, um, or of Moses striking the rock and water issuing forth from it. There's actually a name uh, from one of the priests in Israel who it's one of his sons or children whose name Zuri Shaddai. Zur meaning rock. So Shaddai is my rock, essentially. Um, so certainly God providing for us, succoring us, I would say is a common motif, and seems to fit well with this imagery of Shaddai. So my view of it is that El is the father counterpart in this name, and Shaddai is the mother counterpart in the story of Ruth. She speaks Naomi, I think Ruth as well. It's mostly Naomi who speaks. But she speaks specifically about Shaddai, not including the father when she talks about what is happening to her and her bitterness. And hey, sweet boy. And it's just my neighbor kid. And how, she's lost her sons, and whoops. And she praises Shaddai when Ruth has a child. And she herself is seen as a mother figure, a heavenly mother figure, in which she loses all of her children, but that her posterity is gained back through Ruth, and that she acts as nursing mother to this Christ child that Ruth has had. So seems to be strong imagery in that case of Naomi as a mother God figure. So these other interpretations of Shaddai that she talks about. So Shaddai field, there's an interesting story about the birth of Samson, in which, I'm sorry, this is all shaking around, in which his mother is given a vision that she will have a son, and it is in a field, maybe the fields of Mamre. Those are a popular one. Those have sacred connotations. But she has this vision, and her husband does not believe it until he has the vision himself. And I think the angel appears at least twice, maybe three. No, I think it's three times. Appears a second time, and she runs to him and tells him. He says, like, well, I need to see the vision. And so finally she's able to get him and bring him to the field, where the angel speaks again to her specifically about the son that she will have. So this annunciation, as it were, coming to Samson's mother in a sacred place, meaning the mother of God, or Shaddai, meaning God. The same goes for Sarah's vision that she will have a son, Isaac. This one's a little harder to see because Abraham, who has already had his vision, gets a little confused and shows up to the tent, and instead of saying, Sarah, come on out and have this understanding of the everlasting covenant with me, he tells her to go and prepare the sacrifice, and he goes out to the fields of Mamre and sits under a tree, all imagery of the mother god of female deities in the ancient Levant. And under this sacred tree in this field, he receives the vision that he will have Isaac, but God specifically asks him, where's your wife Sarah? He says, oh, she's at the tent. Well, she will have a son. So this is a vision for her, and then God speaks directly to Sarah and tells her that she laughed, and she's surprised because she didn't say anything out loud, but God was speaking directly to her. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, so right. So also, when you look in the book of Gesenius, or the what do you call that? Lexicon, I guess. Is it a lexicon? So I only have Gesenius's lexicon, which I guess is kind of outdated. I like some of its interpretations and views of the etymologies and the roots. Um, it's the one I have physically. But at any rate, so um, something that is interesting here. So something that would counter Margaret Barker's view, perhaps, about the interpretation of Shaddai as a root, um, coming from the root meaning breast, would be that there's a dagesh in the Dalet. So it's a double D, Shaddai, as opposed to one D. Um, so for the most part, people think that the root is Shaddad, meaning destroyer, almighty. But I also found here, which I thought was interesting, Shaddai, um, with also a dagesh in the Dalet, means mistress or lady or wife. So it's the feminine form of shed, I guess, meaning master. So, right, and a subset to Shaddai, actually, it says there right there. So that seems to have a very feminine connotation. Um, Also, there are connotations of, um, where is it? Okay, well, so shad anyway. She does talk about the root shad as being associated with to moisten, um, hence shad, a woman's breast. And it does talk about that here. Maybe I'll look that up and find it another time. Sorry, I'm doing this right now. Anyway, those are my thoughts on El Shaddai. And hopefully you could hear that, even though I'm covered up the microphone with my hair. And yeah, I think that's all. So El meaning the father, Shaddai meaning the mother, and Almighty God is referring to them both, or sometimes just the mother.